We walk into this club, people everywhere, clean as a whistle, tons of equipment. Everybody's happy. Everybody's doing their own thing. Trainers are helping people learn how to turn on a treadmill. And I looked at my buddy. I said, this thing's an ATM machine. This thing's printing money.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Today, we're speaking with the CEO of Planet Fitness Growth Partners, one of their largest and privately owned fitness franchises. We talk about the secret formula that makes Planet Fitness such a massive success, which most people expect is either their cheap memberships, casual environment, or maybe even their free pizza. But it's not what you think, and our guest today reveals the method behind the perceived madness. We also discuss how to use other people's money to finance business growth, why goal setting and dreaming big are essential, and what are the pros and cons of starting your own brand versus a franchise. So please welcome the CEO of Planet Fitness Growth Partners, Mr. Victor Brick, to the Escape Your Limits podcast.
Well, first I married up, and that's the secret of life. I married well above my pay grade, and I would strongly suggest, I'm a little prejudiced, but I strongly suggest find a partner, a life partner that will make you better. And the best relationships are where both people think they're the lucky one. The second thing is, what motivates me? When I was dating Lynn, her mother did not think that I was going to amount to anything because I was going to be a PE teacher and a basketball coach. And she told Lynn, you marry that boy, you'll spend all your life in a smelly gym. Little did she realize we would own them all. So the moral of the story, behind every successful man stands a surprise mother-in-law.
Well, you look like you're in a beautiful apartment, actually. I don't know where that is, but it looks pretty awesome.
We live in Miami Beach.
Very nice. Very nice.
Our headquarters are in Baltimore, but we live in Miami Beach, and I was out on the beach today doing my qigong. It's really nice. It gets hot in the summer, but I'm a hot weather guy, so we're here pretty much year round. We travel, obviously, and we go back corporate headquarters regularly because I'm a big in-person type of guy, but most of the time we're here. Yeah.
It looks very nice. And I must say, I was very excited to be able to speak with you because I've sort of followed you on Instagram and follow a lot of your articles. And, I must say it's certainly, someone to aspire to, because you seem to have a great relationship with your wife. You've got daughter in the business. You seem to have that great balance. You travel a lot. You're doing the business that you love. So I wanted to understand, how all that happened. What's the secret success formula?
Yeah. Well, are you asking that?
I had a bunch of questions, but I just wanted to sort of start off and sort of say that, I'm very, very impressed with what you've achieved. That's for sure, Victor.
Well, I appreciate that. And the tendency, of course, I'm very blessed. And it's funny because I'm doing yoga now because I was doing all the conventional training over the years in sports and everything. And boy, was I going the wrong direction in terms of flexibility and really just for a while exercise for the wrong reasons. And a buddy of mine said, you can do anything you want to your body till the age of 40 and then it pays you back. Well, I'm a lot older than 40. So anyway, my yoga instructor asked me, something, they're all philosophical, all these yoga instructors. So she asked me about how happy I am. And I told her without hesitating, if I died today, I die a happy man. I've been so blessed. I can't believe it. And we started in the business back in the 80s when it was just emerging. So even though I didn't know anything, I fumbled and stumbled because it's not today. Today, if you get in the fitness business and you don't know what you're doing, you've got no chance. You got billion-dollar companies and Planet Fitness and franchises and private equity. But back then, it was a ma and pa business, and we were ma and pa. And we built the business together, my wife and I. And sometimes, as you know, those things divide you. But in our case, it brought us closer. And because it was a fun business, let's face it, fitness is a fun business and it's a rewarding business. You're doing something good. Boy, is it rewarding when you see the benefits of fitness for people. It brought our kids in. And for a while, my son was in it. Now he's a programmer in San Francisco. He's eventually wants to do his own thing. But my daughter's still in the business. And we were able to, we only had to work half days. And not as much anymore, but we sometimes have to work half days. And that's the first 12 hours or the second. You know, we were working 12 days, 12-hour day. But when you're an entrepreneur, guess what? You choose which 12 hours. And the clock would roll around 3 o'clock, my daughter's basketball game, I'm out of here. On a Saturday when I had all this going on in my head, my son's soccer game, I'm at a soccer game. And so we developed, and my daughter, my wife was the same way. So, you know, we had that balance, and we continue to have it. And the problem, only time I get in trouble is when I do things for the wrong reasons, or I get out, and that's not the only time, but the main time I get in trouble, and I'm talking about spiritually, emotionally, physically, and financially, is when I do things for the wrong reasons. I get into a business because it looks profitable and it's going to high, it's going to be a unicorn, and I don't really know or love the business. And I do the same thing in social settings when I do things just because everybody's doing it, and I think I got to be there, and this, that, and the other thing. And I've learned over time, you know, do things that what do you call it? That nurture your soul, and guess what? The money follows, and it has. So we've been very blessed.
That's a very interesting point you make there, and I can definitely relate to that. And it's easy, you know, when you kind of look back, it's easy to say, well, yeah, actually, I can figure that out. But how do you look forward and sort of connect to that? Is it a case? I know you meditate. Is it a case of sort of having that time where, you know, separation from all the hustle and bustle, what's going on, and sort of, you know, just spending time sort of really thinking, is this really a great move? You know, yes, it could be profitable, but is this really sort of where I'm going to be? Because I suppose business is so busy, and there's so many things going on all the time. Sometimes you can kind of, before you know it, you can be quite deep into something before you realize maybe, you know, that's not the right direction. So how have you navigated that, you know, where you say you're in alignment with yourself and also the business opportunity?
Well, first, you're always trying to improve in that area. Life's a journey, not a destination, and you should be constantly learning and trying to learn yourself, about yourself, as much as what you do and how business works and theory of management. And so over just recently, as I said, I've gotten into yoga because I realized I was headed a little bit in the wrong direction. That's just a recent phenomenon for me. I mean, phenomenon of practice, but I'm talking about 4 months. I've just, in the past decade, gotten into feng shui, which is really managing your own personal energy. And it's about the energy in the universe. And too many of us are not in touch with ourselves. And we're also not in touch with the energy that exists in the universe, and the fact that if we work with the energy, it's to our advantage. If we work against it, we're going to be pushing a ball uphill. And I'm talking about things like going with your gut, because your gut will tell you many times whether it was, quote, meant to be. Things are meant to be. Everything happens for a reason. You've heard it, and this is as much science as it is philosophy, things like the law of attraction. You know, you've talked to many, many successful people. You're a successful person yourself. You become what you think. What you throw out there comes back to you. So you've got to control your thoughts, and you've got to understand how to channel your thoughts and your energies. But you also got to understand yourself and how you work best. And too many people, they think binary. They think everybody needs 8 hours of sleep. Everybody should be a morning person. Early bird gets the worm. Everybody should be a hard worker. Nobody should work that hard. You should have flow time. You should this, you should that. Different strokes for different folks. Different people have different personalities. They have different mentalities, and they have different energies. And what I found, looking back my whole life, I was best in these situations. I need flow time. I need large blocks of uninterrupted time. And when I can think and when I can relax, I'm pretty damn good. And it's like Jamie Hayes, my buddy, said, he's in Australia. And I don't know if you know Jamie, but he's phenomenal. He goes, sometimes I just sits and thinks, and sometimes I just sits. and sometimes I just sits. And I get this FOB. Do you know what an FOB is?
No.
Flash of brilliance. Matthew, it'll hit me like a ton of bricks. Boom. And I'll say, damn. And I'll implement it, and it'll change the culture of the company. It'll it'll decide what to do in a $3 million health club we're looking at. It'll be other people like my wife, they're doers. They got to go, 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 go. You ever wonder how a guy can like get degrees and write a book and run a business and surprisingly, even though my resume is pretty extensive, I can't do that. I need to kind of take things in sequence. And as I said, I need flow time. Whereas my wife, she can juggle these balls all at the same time and be very happy and effective. So a lot of it is getting to learn yourself, and it's an ongoing process. I'm sure you and anybody else, if they're pure 100% honest, they would say, I don't fully understand myself. So it's a journey.
Mm. So how do you, I sort of raised a question I wasn't going to ask, but I think it's relevant to this. So what do you do when you're sort of you've invested a lot, you're in a position, and then you think, well, maybe I need to make a change of direction, but you've got a lot invested, and you know what? And I don't know the story, but I know you've been very successful. You built brick bodies. You know, you started back in sort of mid '80s, and you built your own brand with your wife. Very successful by all accounts, and then you sort of made I guess a very interesting change to go from sort of being an owner and a brand yourself to then being involved in a franchise like Planet Fitness,
right.
which you know, I guess is from an outsider, it's okay. Well, that's a sort of different direction. So how do you go from sort of spending a lot of time, you know, creating this business, building your own brand and everything that goes around with that, innovating and developing a culture, to then sort of, you know, starting almost like from scratch in some ways with a very different kind of concept, you know, from the product itself is very different. But, you know, from what I understand, the people that come into it, are different. I guess the culture would probably be a little bit different. How do you come to that point where you sort of, you know, almost go on a new road in your life and as an entrepreneur?
It's very interesting question, and it's a very complex answer because, again, a lot of it has to do with your gut. And we had this great brand, but it was a regional brand, brick bodies, regional to the Baltimore-Washington corridor, very management intensive and required a lot of effort. Full service clubs are very high maintenance, high management intensive and capital intensive. And as you already mentioned, I have this, and as I said about the flow time, I have this need to have balance. I cannot, as much as it appears, because like I said, we've done a lot pretty well, as much as it appears I can just pour myself and be obsessed with them, I can't. And brick bodies was draining me a little. And I realized I needed something that was, what do you call it? It was sustainable, but it was scalable. It was scalable. Now, people have scaled clubs every bit as Brick Bodies 24-hour LA, they did it and all. But again, you're bringing in partners, you're bringing in capital, you're working for somebody, you know, usually investment capital investment, venture capitalist or private equity. And it's just a different lifestyle. And I like this balance, and yet I love the fitness industry. So it had to be something in the fitness industry. It had to be scalable, and it had to be consistent with my wife and I are one of the same. She could be sitting right here next to me, and usually is stealing my thunder, by the way. But anyway, it had to be consistent with our values, our core values, and our core purpose: changing people's lives, hard work, and inclusivity. And for, you know, we started Brick Bodies in 1985, so we were very early in the growth of the fitness industry. And the entire, before Planet, for 25 years, everybody in the fitness industry would talk about attracting the other 85%. Because historically in the US, only 15% of the population belonged to a health club. In Europe, England is even less. England and Germany are the most in Europe, but it's about 12, 14. And Planet, when I saw it, was the answer. Planet Fitness has 15 million members. If you do your math, 300 million Americans, 15 million members, that's 5% of the US population. We took, by ourselves, the number of people that work at percentage of population in the US from 15% to 20% ourselves. It is now in the low 20s because other low cost providers have come in. Most of the growth has been in the high volume, low price end of the market, Crunch, and some of these others. But we were the first, and we by far have the most members. And so that's why we got involved. So it was not a rash decision. It was not out of desperation. It was out of compatibility. And it was almost an FOB. And I'll tell you how it happened. And this is kind of the reason why people need to get out of their ivory towers and stop working. And if you want to grow, you got to realize you can be a doer or a thinker. So Lynn's at a URSA conference, a board meeting in Boston, and I went up to meet my good buddy in Boston who's in the health club business. And we decided to go look at this new concept called Planet Fitness. I mean, what kind of club can be operating for $10 a month? Come on, give me a break. It's got to be a joke. We walk into this club, people everywhere, clean as a whistle, tons of equipment. Everybody's happy. Everybody's doing their own thing. Trainers are helping people learn how to turn on a treadmill. And I looked at my buddy. I said, this thing's an ATM machine. This thing's printing money. And he was on this group of health club owners. If I said the names, you'd know all of them. They're the biggest health club owners in the world. He and everybody else said, Victor, you're crazy. Why don't you just do it with brick bodies? But they didn't understand what my values were and what my energy and what I knew myself. And I made the jump to Planet. He did not. He's had 7 clubs at the time. He now has 11. I had 6 at the time. I now have 85. And I did it, quite frankly, like the song says, my way. Whatever you do your way. I'm not telling you my way is right. I'm not telling you can't be a workaholic, and I'm not telling you this. I'm just saying whatever, know yourself and do it for the right reasons. And whatever happens, no regrets. I got a really good buddy of mine. He was a great basketball player, and he had, if I told you a story, it's right out of the movies, but he got involved. We had police protection and everything because of his dad being a judge in DC trying a very high profile case. So he couldn't play anymore. And I said, boy, Buzz, you got to really feel terrible about that. And he goes, no regrets, Victor. No regrets. New dreams, just new dreams, no regrets. And whatever you do, make sure you don't look over your shoulder and say, damn, I wish I'd have done it differently.
Good lesson. Not easy to do, but it's a great lesson.
It's so hard to do. Here's the thing. I was talking to a buddy of mine about this yesterday. There are things in life called do-overs. You date a girl, it doesn't work out. It's a do-over. You date another girl. There are some things that are not do-overs. Your back's hurting. You get your back fused when you didn't need it and you shouldn't have got it done, and the guy screws it up. That's no do-over. The rest of your life, you're going to have a bad back. You get in a fender bender, you're out a little bit of money, that's a do-over. You don't wear your helmet riding a motorcycle, you hit your head and you're in a basket, there's no do-overs. Fortunately, most things in life are do-overs. And they say success comes from good judgment. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. And suffice it to say, I've had my share of experience. I've done things for the wrong reasons. Even now, I do stupid stuff. Lynn just laughs at me. And I mean, and fortunately, it's on a small scale, but I'll invest in something and I'll say, God, I should have known better than that. It's just, I can tell you about the $800 hat that I bought for the Kentucky Derby a couple of years ago, and only because the woman selling it was so gorgeous. and I pulled a James Bond. I tried the hat on, it didn't fit. It was sitting up on top of my head. Lynn's laughing at me because this girl's got me wrapped around her finger. And she asked me, she goes, do you want to know how much it costs? I go, no, wrap it. I heard James Bond do that in a movie once, wrap it. I got home, $800 for a hat that didn't fit. And what do you learn from that? Be humble, don't be stupid. A dollar's a dollar no matter how well you're doing. So you learn from your mistakes. You just hope that they're do-overs. It's not something that's letting the love of your life, the relationship deteriorate and forever regretting it, and your kids are caught in between. That's a no do-over.
Mm. So on that point then, Victor, because we can go a little bit deeper on it. So one of the things I guess a lot of people, particularly starting out in business, is that, thinking about setting goals. And I know that's something you talk about quite a bit. I've heard you speak before, and so you've got a goal, and I guess as it relates to this story where you had Brick Bodies, that was your goal, is to build the brand, and then I guess this other opportunity came up, which I suppose if you reverse the clock 10 years, you probably would have never even have imagined that would have been where you have ended up. So in terms of sort of goal setting and trying to plan where you want to be, my guess is that experience that you got, which was unique to you from Brick Bodies, allowed you to make the decision to go to Planet, because probably without that, you may have not have come to the same conclusion. So how do you balance setting goals in terms of where you and your family and your business want to be, but being open to almost say, well, look, but I also don't know where I'm going to end up being? How do you balance those two?
There's so much there's so much information out there now, and so much wise counsel and advice available, that it is much easier these days for young entrepreneurs and even older entrepreneurs to acquire the skills and the mindset to be successful. When I started with one club, I didn't know what I wanted to do with that club. And as you know, one of the secrets of good to great, start with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. Ideally, you start with the end in mind. When Jobs and Wozniak started in that garage, they wanted to change the world. Gates the same way. When Ray Kroc sold his blender to the McDonald's brothers and worked in that first McDonald's, one of the first McDonald's, and realized, I'm not going to sell blenders, I'm going to sell hamburgers. He understood the end. But then the plan to get there constantly changes. It's like going to the moon. You can be hundreds of miles off trajectory going to the moon, but when you get there, you land right in the spot you want to do. So in the perfect world, you have an idea of where you want to end up, a la a doctor, a la a restaurateur that has the best restaurant in New York City, a la a franchisee owner or a multiple restaurant owner that is international in scope. It doesn't always work that way. And the majority of people fail, not because they set goals too high, they set goals too low. When I used to go to these conferences, remember, I just had like 2 or 3 clubs. They would always tell me that many people that I would listen to would say things like, if you're going to be big, you might as well go national. And I think, what the hell do I want to go national for? Well, I'm coast to coast now. I got clubs in Seattle. I got clubs in San Francisco. I got clubs in Maryland and Florida and in between. They would also say, think international. It's a small world. Think international? Are you kidding me? I got 2 clubs in Baltimore. We just opened our 6th club in Australia. We're international. Just think, starting out 35 years ago, if I'd have said, I'm good enough, and my wife and I are good enough, and we know enough, and we can draw enough good people to us that we can be a major force in the fitness industry and affect hundreds of thousands of people. I got 650,000, I think, members, 650,000 members. Do I look at them as dollar signs? No, I look at them as people motivated to exercise that I helped get off the couch. That's what drives me. That's what drives most of the people in the fitness industry. Because you didn't get into the business to be rich, because once upon a time, you couldn't get rich. There was no money in it. It's kind of worked out fine. But back when we started, we were just pulling a salary. So if you can start with the end in mind, then you kind of adjust as you go. And that's, quite frankly, over time, what happened when I realized Brick Bodies. I wanted to do more than Brick Bodies, and it was kind of not quite fulfilling for me. That's when I started with the end in mind. I wanted something, remember what I said, it was pretty simple. I wanted something, that's what I say, scalable, and I wanted something low maintenance. And boy, in the fitness industry, so that it wouldn't monopolize my life. Stop. And boy, does Planet fit that bill. So I didn't know it was going to be Planet. I just knew and even even at first, I didn't know that I would know it if I found it. But it got to the point where I was realizing I was saying no to all these opportunities. And I just said to myself, I'll know the right one when I see it. And I told you, I walked into one planet and bang, that was it. We poured all guns in it and we're sitting on 85 now. So ideally you start in the end in mind, but if you don't, you learn. Remember what I said, experience comes from bad judgment. You learn as you go along. But remember what I said earlier as well. Life is a learning process. Too many people, they want a formula and they want to go by the numbers. Remember what I said, binary. Binary means by the numbers. Life doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. And you got to constantly adjust. Remember what I said earlier, no regrets? Give it your best shot, no regrets. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
So a couple of follow-ups on that then, just to go a bit deeper. So there's one thing that you said, that you and your wife had confidence that you were able to create this global company. So first part of the question is, I suppose, a lot of us doubt ourselves. You think, okay, well, it would be great, nice idea, but can I really do it? So first part of the question is, how did you and your wife have that confidence quite early on that ambitious goal, you were able to do that? Because like I say, I know I talk to a lot of people and it's easy to get, question yourself and doubt yourself whether you can do that. And then the second part is what do you do as a couple to sort of revise those those dreams? Is it something you do like on a regular basis, monthly, yearly, quarterly? How do you sort of reset where you want to go as a couple in that relationship side?
Well, if you haven't been able to ascertain in the few minutes we've been together, I'm a pretty emotional guy. And most people think that life goes like this and life goes like this. And there are mornings now. It's always darkest before dawn. There are mornings when I say to myself, can I do this? Do I need to do this? Why am I doing this? No joke. Even now, COVID, we went from billing 14 million a month to zero. Come on, zero. 14 million, zero. Boom. And things have persisted. I mean, it's not flip the switch and all of a sudden we got double rents due and we got people coming back, but who knows? And then they're telling me that they're going to close the state. So it's not, you don't ever, rarely do you get to the point where you don't have doubt. You do it with positive self-talk, and you really do a gut check. And I'll tell you, when I realized that maybe I was a little tougher than I gave myself credit for, and I was going to be okay. First month in business, first club. We bought it, supposed to have a $28,000 a month EFT. That club now, by the way, has a $700,000 a month EFT. We expanded it, moved it, but at one time, 28,000. We get in there, and I'm just this PE teacher coach. I don't even know anything. We were billing 28,000, but we were only banking 10 or 18. So we were 10,000 behind. So all of a sudden, we're losing 10,000 a month. I tapped my parents out for all their money. I don't have any money. And I thought to myself, we're done. We're toast. So the second month in business, I called up the guy I bought the club from, who happened to be the landlord of the property and has become a great friend. And I said, Clark, you promised us that it'd be this and it wasn't that. And we're not there. And any chance you'll take the club back? I'm on the phone with him. And he goes, Victor, I'll take the club back, but I thought you had more guts than that. And it was like, somebody else would have said, great, he's taking the club back. But when he said, I thought you had more guts than that, it was like he punched me in the stomach, which is, of course, what he was trying to do, because he liked me and he knew that I could do it. And I just kind of moved the phone away from my ear. And I said, Clark, on second thought, I think we got it covered. And I changed my attitude that very moment. And I said to myself, whatever I do, I'm going to give everything I got to everything I do. And anything I do, they're going to have to carry me out of there. I'm going to be last man standing. So when I get these moments, even now when I start, I just think to myself, Victor, I thought you had more guts than that. You wanted to be easy, man. You could have stayed with the rec department. It's the life you chose. And then how about Lynn and myself? I don't like to try to tell people that, you know, I don't like to make it sound like Lynn and I have a perfect relationship. And sometimes I get a little self-conscious about talking about it, but I can tell you without fear or hesitation that there's never been 1 second. We've been married 42 years, and it's 3 of the best years of my life. No, that's a joke. Because what I was going to say is, in 42 years, there's never been 1 second, not 1 second, that I said to myself, why did I marry that girl? Or I wish I'd married somebody else. And she has been the rock. During that time when I started, I mean, I was really shaken at the beginning when we started Medallion. She said, we'll make it. And I knew we would. And so what we do, we've never stopped courting. And we are lovers and friends first and business partners second. So every day we do. And so we have traditions, because when you're dating, you do stuff, and then you get married and you get into business and you don't have time to do the little things. And that's bullshit. It's more important than ever to do the little things. So one of the traditions we have, when my dad retired from, and forgive me for talking so much, if you want to cut me off, feel free. But anyway, my dad retired from the metro system in DC and moved to Florida 30 years ago. And he bought my mother a cruise, 1 week cruise he could take anytime he wanted. I said, Dad, when are you going to take when you take Mom on a cruise? He goes, Victor, when I have the time. He passed 7 years ago, when we cleared out his middle desk drawer. You know what we found in his middle desk drawer of his desk? That certificate. He never took the time. Lynn and I, have a mimosa every morning for breakfast, just a little one. Mm-hmm. You know why? When do you drink mimosas? When you're on vacation. Guess what? Every day's a vacation. Every day's a vacation. We celebrate life, l'chaim, life, every morning with a little mimosa. And we take the time. We have a date every day. In Baltimore, we drive. Here, we walk downstairs, and it's right there. And that is at Starbucks. And we get our coffee, and we get upset with each other if we're on the phone or we're texting, because we want to be together. It's just a couple of minutes. And it's funny because she's my business partner. So sometimes it'll be, Victor, I heard you talking the other day, and did you think of, I was going to buy out a guy that were at a club near us. And it was going to cost multiple millions of dollars, which we could do, but you never know what's going to happen. So I was fretting over it. And I had a conversation with the guy just the day before. And at Starbucks, Lynn said, I heard you talking. There was a time when there were 2 of them. And one guy was really close, is really close with us. Another guy, not so much. Lynn said, I thought so-and-so said he was willing to stay in with you if you bought out the other guy. And I just like, boom, of course. So all of a sudden the cost is going to be half. We're going to get the facility. If it's upside, yeah, we're giving up some profit, but I'm not concerned with the profit. What I was concerned about was in this COVID environment, the downside, which we've just mitigated by 50%. And it was just because we sat down, we talked, we were having coffee, and she, boom. So that's some of the things that I can tell you. And one final thing that I'll tell you, and this is true for family in general, if you bring family into the business, you had better have a clear job description for what they're doing and clear lines, especially if they're equal. In our business, I got the CEO, Lynn's got the president. Some people, will argue whether Lynn's, but for the most part, we're on the same plane. And it would be disaster if we were getting in each other's business. So she knows where she's supposed to really focus, and I know where I'm supposed to focus. I focus with the banks. I focus with site selection. I focus with the budget. She focuses with the people. She's the brand agent. She's the staff. And it works beautifully. And there's none of this conflict with ourselves or with the organization, because you can imagine the husband and wife team. Well, who do we listen to? If we were both managing the same people. If you looked at the organizational flow chart, nobody that I supervise is under her, and vice versa, because it'd be confusing. So those are some of the things we do.
Yeah, coming from a lot of experience. We've got a family business as well, so I sort of understand where you're coming from. That's and now you've got obviously your daughter as well. So I guess that's another sort of element to run into it.
Well, here's the thing. She's the CEO of Brick Body, so technically we're like the board of directors. And I can't tell her, sometimes she calls me up, Dad, why did you talk to that person directly? Because I jumped the chain of command. She's a tiger, that one, boy. She's a tiger. And she's right. She's right. We were the founders. The tendency is just to say something, and we don't realize that the person was sending conflicting messages. I always apologize. It's not that she's incorrect, but Daddy, you got to stay in your lane, and I'll stay in mine. Stay in your lane.
So one of the things that I've sort of read about is how when you started your business, and I think this is relevant again for a lot of people at the moment, is that you started where you self-financed, so you didn't have an option apart from to sort of earn the money and then put the money back in to expand and to grow. And I guess probably more recently, from what I understand, with the business you're in now, it's different. You're able to scale a lot differently. You've got the finance and the support and also the brand where people can trust and want to invest in you. Being involved in both sides of that, what are some of the lessons that you can share about doing it yourself, bootstrapping your business, and going out and getting funding, and what are the sort of pros and cons of both of those different strategies?
Most businesses fail right before they're going to become successful, and they fail due to lack of capital. And many of these big firms and private equities and banks make a living out of buying those failed businesses up at pennies on the dollar, infusing them with capital and making them successful. If I had it to do all over, remember what I said, no regrets, but if I had it to do all over again, that being said, if I had it to do all over again, I would not do anything that I wasn't heavily funded for at least 2 years with zero income, because revenues will always be half of what you expect, expenses twice. Take that down, commit it to memory. Revenue will always be half of what you expect, expenses twice. Now, here's the thing about the no regrets. If I'd have put the money in place when I started Brick Bodies, when Planet Fitness had come along, I'd have had 20 Brick Bodies, and I'd have probably been making 20, 30 million EBITDA. And now I'd be fighting Planet instead of being part of Planet with what I've got, which is, quite frankly, a heck of a lot more than that. So no regrets, it worked out. But that is a lesson. And the funny thing is, not the funny thing is, but the coincidental thing is that most young guys know that. Most people, when they talk to you or to me, I mean, I'm sure you started the same way I did, just organic growth, and it's so much easier when you do OPM, other people's money, and there's so much more access to capital. And here's the thing about capital: a lot of people think that if you got a lot of money, it can be a detriment because now you don't think you got to make money. The exact opposite is true. You really find out how good a manager you are when you have money to use. I am so much a better CEO with Planet than I was with Brick Bodies, where I wouldn't be able to give people bonuses that they deserved. I wouldn't be able to take advantage of a club that I should have renovated or expanded or opened because I had resources, didn't have the resources. When you have the resources, you really, really find out how good you are. You also find out how bad you are. So if you get a lot of money and you do stupid things, well, guess what? You're a bad businessman. But if you're a good businessman, once you get the capital, now, how many times have you been in business or you talk to people that know they should have marketed more, that know they should have a CFO, but he's going to be $200,000 a year, that know they should get all that new exercise equipment, but the stuff they have is okay, and the loan will, and the debt will be gone for in 2 months, and they don't want to assume another $500,000 in debt. So they're not making the right decisions because they don't have the capital. So my advice to everybody is get the capital in place, even if that means you've got to give up some of the business. But at the same time, make sure you maintain control if that's what you want, and that at the end of the day, you live the lifestyle you want to live. People tell you a couple of things. They'll tell you never get involved with your family in business. You ever heard that? And look at you, look at me, and look at almost everybody else. And they'll tell you something else. Never have a partner. Tell that to Steve Jobs. Tell that to Bill Gates. Tell that to Warren Buffett. Tell every one of them had a key partner. So partners, the right partners are like wives. The right wife happy wife, happy life. The wrong wife can make you miserable. And husband, same way. The wrong husband, the right husband. It's the right partner. Make sure you get the right partner, and if you need him, and make sure you get the right financing if you need it.
And do you, on that financing, it's a great point. I've not heard that discussed too much. I think you really make an interesting point there. Do you think that is conditional to, I suppose, what you want out of business? You know, so if your goal for your business is look to grow, to have an impact, and to, you know, be very, very profitable, as opposed to, look, you know, I just want a lifestyle business. Is the statement you made dependent on where, you know, keeping the end in mind where you want to go, or would you say in general, look, if you want to build a business and be able to do the things you said, like reinvest and pay bonuses, etc., that, you know, make sure you got enough cash to cover you for those 2 years, you know, etc.
What I would say is, like most things in life, my dad was so smart. I'd ask him a question. He used to piss me off as a kid. I'd ask him any question, and he'd always say, that depends. So my response to you, Matthew, was that depends. It's all degrees. But I will tell you this. I've been rich. I've been poor. Rich is better. and the definition of rich, I think, is really where it varies. Rich for some people is being able to have a house and take vacations 3 times a year. Rich for other people is to have a boat. But whatever it is, you need to be able to live the lifestyle you want to live, and you cannot do it without a healthy business. And the problem people may have, and just look at the COVID, it's the best example. You have to be, remember what I said about life, it's not linear. You've got to be able to take the ups and downs. If you're making 10% EBITDA on $2 million, that's $200,000 a year. That's pretty good, but not in the COVID environment when it takes 30% of your EBITDA. Our EBITDA across the board in Planet was over 40%. So we lose 30% EBITDA. Guess what? We got a pretty good business, and we're now back to, I think, 97% of whatever we were building. So I'm doing handsprings, but I wouldn't have been doing handsprings if I was at 10% or even 20%, because COVID's been with us for a year and a half. Or year, it was March, so whatever it is, 14 months. So you've got to, don't cop out thinking, oh, I don't need to be successful, I got enough. Yeah, but what happens when the market turns, when the economy turns, when the flood happens? My poor uncle, I loved him dearly. He was my only uncle on my dad's side, and he had a flood. He had a grocery store in Pennsylvania, and he had a once in 50-year flood, replaced it, everything. He had another once in 50-year flood 2 years later. I guess the 250 years overlapped, and it put him out of business. It ruined him because he didn't have access to capital. He didn't have the margins. He didn't have the nest egg. And it was one of the most difficult things. And this was, he was in his 80s by then, and his kids were running the business. Yeah. So get that money in place, be successful, have all the things that you hear, have money for a rainy day. The other thing, keep in mind, like I said, I use my words choose them very, very carefully. Access to capital. That's the thing. You don't have to have $5 million hanging in the bank, but if you need a couple $100,000 for insurance, for act of God recovery, or for marketing because the competitors come in, you better have access to it. Because if you don't, you're mortgaging your house again, and now you have 55 mortgaging your house instead of 25 mortgaging your house. So yes, I would say it's one of the things of everything I've said today. I've spelled out a lot of philosophy, but in terms of business sense, you make sure you have access to capital. You make sure that you do not overestimate sales and underestimate expenses, and realize that I have a buddy. He's one of the largest health owners in the world. His company's worth $2 billion. And I asked him if I should sell. I was killing it. I asked him if I should sell. He said, yes. I said, why? He goes, you could go to zero without knowing it. And guess what happened? Oh, we went to zero. Now, we didn't sell, but he was right. I mean, those things happen.
Great piece of advice. Something worth listening over and over again, and I will do as well. Moving on then to business, and I want to talk about Planet for a moment. Very unique business, but there's many sort of, if you look at that model, low cost, there's various definitions of it, but it's not like, although they were the first, there's many people out there that are sort of offering that. So I guess the question that most people are interested in is what makes Planet special, because there's no Group X there. It's the offering is good and simple, but it's not comprehensive like probably your brick bodies and right. It's very simple and straightforward, and also it's $10, which I'm kind of wrapping my head around it, and I understand how successful they are, but it's like, well, how do you make money from that? Because the equipment's great, it's clean. You spend money on good equipment. It's not sort of low end. I know the equipment space very well. So right. I guess what makes them special, and how, I guess, from a business perspective, do they make is it also profitable at the same time?
Well, I'll address the profitable question first, because it's a very simple one. And how do we make money at $10 a month? We don't. Our Black Card rate is $23 a month, and we have 60 to 70% of people at Black Card at 23%, which, quite frankly, a lot 24 in LAs, and crunches are 25 and 29. So it's very comparable. And like I said, our profit margins are through the roof because we've brought down the cost of operation. We are Cirque du Soleil. Cirque du Soleil looked at the circus and they said, where is all the expenses? The expenses were in the animals, the expenses were in the travel, and the expenses were in the ringmaster, who would make $500,000 a year. Have you ever seen a Cirque du Soleil travel? There's one that does, but the rest of them, where do you go? Vegas. There are no animals. Do you know the name of it? I'm sure you've seen Cirque du Soleil, correct?
Yeah, I've been to see them.
Do you know the name? Do you know the name of one single performer? This guy doesn't do the job. He goes. You bring in another guy that can do their trapeze and everything. At the same time, in the same city, they've got 5 circuses going on at the same time. They've revolutionized. And by the way, P.T. Barnum and Bailey Circus is out of business. Ringling Brothers, out of business. That's what we did. We came in and we looked at all the expenses. Childcare, they really, and we didn't look at them. It was out of necessity. Mike and Mark Rondo, all the founders. Chris Rondo owned some Gold's gyms, 3 of them, New Hampshire. They sold them, held paper. Clubs were failing. They took the clubs back. They looked at their membership. They said the only members still on are the ones paying $10 a month. Let's have a sale for $10 a month. They started having a sale for $10 a month. People started coming. They said, we need more space. Let's continue the sale. They were only doing is a sale. Let's continue the sale and get rid of childcare, because we're not sure childcare pays. Got rid of childcare. They kept coming. God, now we need the aerobic studio. Got rid of the aerobic studio. They kept coming. Got rid of personal training because personal trainers were tying up the equipment. They kept coming. That's how it evolved. The population really drove it. So that being said, for sure, there are many, many people in the budget space, forget brick bodies, forget LA, forget all, in the high volume, low price, that offer a lot more than Planet. And we love it because we deal in the 5 fears of a new member. And when I say the fears, you may have never quite heard them specifically labeled the way I do, but everyone will resonate with you because you've been in the industry a long time. The 5 fears of a new member are really a prospective member. That other 85% that the fitness industry was never able to get until Planet came along. These are their 5 fears. 1, physique anxiety. They're afraid of what they look like. They're intimidated with what they look like. I've got to get in shape before I go into a club. 2, fear of feeling stupid. I don't know how to turn on the equipment. I don't know how to use the lift the dumbbells. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm not going in there. Well, physique anxiety, we attract the average individual. 50% of our members are first-time users. Fear of feeling stupid, that's why we only have 2 lines of equipment. That's why we don't have every new gadget that comes out. We don't have all the technology because of the fear of feeling stupid. The third thing is fear of feeling uncoordinated. Now, you remember, you're talking to a guy whose wife was the International Instructor of the Year and the European Aerobics Instructor of the Year, probably one of the most decorated aerobic instructors in history. And I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many times when I would tour people around, we'd stand in the door of the aerobic room, my wife doing all this, and the person would look at me and say, I can't do that because why? And you know what they say, because I'm uncoordinated, right? So that's the fear of feeling like a klutz. Fear of feeling stupid is different than fear of feeling like a klutz. The number 4 reason people don't join a club normally, fear of isolation. They're afraid they go in there, they're the only one of their kind in there. Everybody else is fit and they know each other and they're a closed circle. Matthew, that's why we do the bagel mornings. That's why we do the pizza evenings once a month. We have a party. People get together, they socialize, they become friends. People criticize us for that. They don't get it. They think we're stupid and we're dumb like foxes. And the funny thing is, we didn't do it initially for that reason. I was the one that told corporate, this is the benefit of that, right? It's overcoming the fear of isolation. They were just doing it to make it a point that we aren't hardcore. And then the final fear is the fear of the hard sell. And you know as well as I do that historically, the worst rated sales business in the world was used car sales. And historically, who's number 2? Always health clubs. People hate the health club sales experience. Ask them. The salespeople hate it. They feel pressured because you're kind of hooking this guy and just how much it costs. Well, let me show you the benefits first. And you just, disingenuous. 70% of our sales are now online. 70%. Before COVID, it was 40. People walk in, they see the club. What's the decision to be had? This is a beautiful club for $10 a month. Come on, man. And all we do is we upgrade them to the Black Card, which is multi-club usage in the spa area. Yeah, we do that. But as far as the basic, like you said, you've been into the clubs. Who's not going to charge? So we take away the 5 fears of a potential new member, which is why we've gotten so many more people in the United States, predominantly US, because we're in Canada and Australia and a couple of places, but almost all the clubs are in the US. We have raised the participation level in the US almost single-handedly from 15 to 20%. And, people, even some of my friends think I'm like one of these zealots and I'm drink the Kool-Aid for planet, but math is math. We've got 15 million members. The second most number of members in the country is either LA or 24, depending on who you talk to, and it's between 2 and 2.5 million people. And that's a fact. It's not me just, playing fast and loose. We have taken or tapped into the masses. And we believe it'll be even more so after COVID when money's tight, yet there's an emphasis on fitness. So it is the judgment-free zone. And Matthew, here's the irony of all this. Now remember, I'm friends with all these health club guys. When I tell them this, I'm talking about my best buddies. You know what they all say? No, Victor, come on. What's the real reason? Nobody believes me. And as long as that happens, I'm fine. Because once they get it, once there's a planet knockoff, and I mean, just knock us off exactly like us, we could be in trouble because now it's going to boil down to a commodity and whichever one's closer. But as it is, do you know, Matthew, we give out shirts to new members. In Brick Bodies, if we give out a 2XL, large, and then XL's extra large, and a 2XL is double XL. That was big. In Planet, we'll give out 4XLs, a shirt that's 4XLs. You know how big you are when you're 400 pounds. You're 400 pounds when you're getting 4XL. And then we don't just give out a couple. It's just unbelievable, the demographic we attract.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You obviously, taps into a new market that needs it. And I suppose, like you say, after COVID, my guess, I don't know what you think, but there seems to be more of an awareness of the importance of health and exercise. Right. Do you think that's gonna sort of impact all the industry, or do you think that people that are models? Because I guess it's not just about price, and maybe I'm sure you know better than I, but is part of the appeal also that this sort of non-judgment zone where it's like, look, I can sort of be around people that I'm not going to be intimidated by.
Well, if you remember the 5 fears I said, none of them were price. So it definitely is that. Is COVID going to drive the industry? For sure. But like most things, who benefits? And that is the high end and the low end, and the middle tends to get contracted. If you look at the clubs that are the most under stress as we speak, partly previous to COVID and then COVID accelerated it, you're talking 24-hour, you're talking Golds, you're talking LA, you're talking Town Sports International, all American clubs. I don't know which ones in Europe, but in Canada, some mid-level clubs, because people like you and I are going to be more committed than ever to fitness. You may not go to a Planet. Somebody like me may not go to a Planet. We might go to an F45, or we might go to a Lifetimes, or we might go to an even higher end and a little more specialized and belong to 2 or 3 of them, because we realize this is far more important than owning a fancy car. But at the low end, they're going to go for 2 reasons. Well, multiple reasons, but 2 of the main reasons is going to be comfort, how well they're accepted, and value. As you know, and I want to touch on the John W. Brick if we could for a moment, because that's really we've done pretty well in the fitness industry, but Lynn and I will be remembered for the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation that we started after my brother John, who suffered from schizophrenia his entire life, and he was never put on a salutogenic process with lifestyle choices. It was always pathogenic medication, psychoanalysis, and institutionalization, and it eventually killed him. But we started this foundation in his honor, and for a while we were kind of just pittering around, but all of a sudden our foundation is front and center because of the parallel pandemic. The parallel pandemic is mental health, and people are now beginning to work out more for their mental health than their physical health. People look at COVID as affecting people physically, and so everybody's going to be into physical health and immunity and resistance. More people are concerned about how they're feeling mentally, because here are the 2 things that are required for good mental health, and they cause mental health issues on the flip side. Connectivity, coping skills. You have connectivity, people that you can associate with, family, support, friends, and you have coping skills, knowing what to do, knowing that you got to go jogging and eating the right foods and getting the right sleep. Your chances of having good mental health are much higher. On the flip side, the 2 things that cause mental health issues the most: loneliness, lack of coping skills. You tell me what these quarantines have caused more than anything, and that is loneliness. And then you tell me, being a fitness person, how many of those people that were locked up, sometimes in your case, a year in England, knew what to do when they're feeling bad? They don't even know how to control their weight, how much more control their mental well-being. And I don't know if you've ever had depression, but I'm sure you've worked with people that do. When you get depressed, I'm sure you'll agree, the one thing you got to do is move. You just got to move. What do most people do? They do the exact opposite, right? They start feeling depressed. You become lethargic. It's called ennui. You become overcome with ennui. You sit on the couch. How many people do you know that get depressed, they don't even get out of bed? That was my brother. My brother would not get out of bed. When they would put him in a mental institution, and it's funny because Lynn and I sit on the board of this hospital where we used to take my brother. It's kind of ironic, and we're trying to push them now towards a world-renowned hospital. I said it's top mental hospital in the United States. But one of the first things they would do every morning, they'd make him get out of bed and make his bed. They made him do that, because if it was up to him, he'd just stay in bed the whole time. So the point is that mental health is such a big issue that it's going to drive people to the fitness community, and they will flow upstream because they realize it and they want more of it in terms of better, more creative and entertaining and challenging. Or they'll go downstream because it's affordable, it's non-threatening, and it's within their comfort zone. And the middle stands at risk.
Yeah, and just staying on that, like you mentioned about the foundation, but am I right in understanding that you're also sort of supporting like quite a big sort of piece of research on that as well? Is that correct?
Well, the foundation does 3 things. Okay, our vision is to change the way the world treats mental health, and we do that by getting salutogenic, holistic approaches such as exercise, nutrition, and mind-body practices integrated as an essential part of the healthcare delivery system. Now think about it. When they would close health clubs, at least in the US, they would let some people open that were, quote, essential, physical therapist, a chiropractor, and they were closing health clubs because you guys are like bars and restaurants. We're always grouped with non-essential. So we want people to think of exercise, nutrition, mind-body practices, holistic approaches as essential. We do that by funding research. That's the $1.4 million research project you're talking about with the University of California, San Francisco, and our buddy Wim Hof. Have you interviewed Wim Hof?
I've not. We're trying to get him on,
okay.
actually.
I can get him on. I can get him on. I'll get him on, and all your listeners have to hear him. But anyway, with Wim Hof, it's research on how Wim Hof method, high intensity interval training, and meditation affect depression. So we do research. We fund research. We create and support programs and services. We're helping to create a certification, mental wellness trainer certification. Here, the whole industry is struggling for revenue, especially trainers. People are hesitant to train and work out, and clubs have closed. Just think if you could get certified in mental wellness fitness trainer. Wouldn't that be cool? And now all of a sudden, insurance companies could use you, and therapists and psychologists would refer people to you. And also that's one of our initiatives. And then we're a collaborative hub in that you're doing something, we'll help promote it. We'll help make your findings aware. We'll include it in our summaries of things, because people are contacting us all the time. Where can I get help? And we may help fund it. So one of the things that we've connected with is the National Center for Healthy Veterans. And we connected with General Dees, Bob Dees. He's building this center outside of Lynchburg, Virginia, because when he came back from Afghanistan, he was the commander in the Middle East for a while, and he was vice commander in NATO. He was so depressed, not that he's depressed, but he was saddened by the state of veterans coming back from overseas deployment, not necessarily combat, just veterans in general. So he started this basic wellness center, and we're going to help develop programs to address PTSD. And of course, it'll initially be related to veterans, but PTSD, like many, many illnesses, are common among general populations. Here's a very sombering statistic. Do you realize that every day, 12, and this is a US statistic, 12 veterans take their life in the United States? Can you imagine that? 12 men and women that have risked their lives overseas come home and take their own life every day. How sad is that? Yeah. So that's a big area for us. So those are some of the things the foundation's doing.
Yeah, that sounds great. I don't know if do you know Eric Durack? We had him on.
Yes, of course I do. Right. Yeah, he's okay. Yeah.
Sounds like some things in
that's
common.
The collaborative hub. That's the collaborative hub. Eric's definitely connected, and that's why I'm on this call with you. And now we have a relationship. We're a collaborative hub. And what I've seen, and you probably will agree with me, I've seen too much of people operating in silos. That traditional health club was here, sports trainers were here, yoga instructors were here, mind body was here. Guys, we're all part of wellness. And all of these things, we don't know. You might think you do, but until you've got scientific, evidence-based research done on your area of expertise, you don't know how what you're doing affects suicide or mental health. It's to your advantage to participate in these research and in this exchange of ideas so that you can apply it properly, because everybody thinks one size fits all for everything from depression to anxiety to bipolar to schizophrenia to suicide. It doesn't. That's what we're trying to find out with our research.
Yeah, we had a lady on as well, a doctor, a few months ago, and she was also talking about how there's happy chemicals. She called them happy chemicals, but within your muscle. So when your muscle actually contracts, and it's very recent research, like probably 12 to 18 months ago, but they found these chemicals that go into your system and actually make you happier. And it's one of the things I've always known from when I was a kid, going through tough times. And I used to come out of the gym and I'm like, I don't know what's happened, but life looks a lot better now. You feel mentally a different place.
And see, that's the problem in the past. It was all anecdotal. People like you and me saying, well, we feel better. And science and medicine saying, well, so what? once you start measuring chemicals, endorphins, hormones, like we are doing, and you have what's called biomarkers. You've heard that term, and now all of a sudden you get this body of evidence that proves what we all know to be true. It's not enough just to know it. You've got to. That's the problem. Everybody in the fitness industry says, "Oh, well, what idiot doesn't know it?" And everybody in the science and medicine industry and the insurance industry, which, by the way, where all money is, they're saying, "Well, how can you prove it?" And we can't. So that's when we're not the only people doing this. By the way, you talk to your doctor, they're fine. Yes, there's a lot more people now doing research, evidence-based research, which is why, getting back to why we are going to be a collaborative hub, because when this research is done, we're going to help promote it.
Yeah, I think it's a great, and certainly I can start seeing a lot of things coming together, and I think it's it's a great thing for the industry. Talking to Eric about how trainers that are in the industry probably maybe not being paid great, but there's now a sort of career path where they can specialize in some of these other things.
Right, career path. And COVID has opened up, as I said, this whole field of mental health where they can become part of, the problem with training, I'm sure you'll agree, it's recurring dues, recurring revenue streams. You get a trainer. I used to be a trainer. You have this professional athlete, he's paying you all this money, and then he gets traded or stops playing and you lose it. And there goes 25% of your income. Wouldn't it be great if you had this recurring dues where these insurance companies were providing people for you and you were training them long-term, because it's basically part of their treatment. And mental health is a lot like alcoholism. There's no finish line. You're an alcoholic. You can't just get to a point and you just stop practicing all those things that got you sober and off drinking. And the same way with mental health. You can't just say, I'm healthy now, and just stop doing all that stuff. You're going to continue. You and I both know, and everybody in the fitness industry, there's no finish line. The general public that so often joins in January to lose weight, they get to a finish line, I'm in my bathing suit, they stop. And then, of course, the next January, they're back in the same place or worse. And we've got to get this mentality. It's a way of life. It's a lifestyle. And I think that is more evident than ever. And surprisingly, Planet Fitness, the majority of people that join our club, now remember, still deconditioned, but they're young. People think they're all older, that we're older and out of shape, and don't know. They're young and they're concerned about their health and well-being. They're going to stay. This whole new generation, this is our generation compared to our parents' generation. I mean, we were 10 times more involved in fitness, but these younger generations are even more so.
I think it's also something that people, you can't really, it's not like you can see it or feel it. And so it's like, well, is it really there? Are you just having a bad day and, sort yourself out, kick yourself up the backside. But even you mentioned it early on in the interview, in terms of business, you get up out of bed some days and you're like, why am I doing this? And that's a real feeling, and you go to the gym and you start feeling better. But those are real feelings that I guess in certain cases can then just be a downward spiral if you're not able to sort of do anything about it. And you become one of those statistics that you mentioned about people that come back from servicing. So outside of fitness, Victor, what do you do in terms of your own sort of mental personal development? I know I've seen you speak a few times and you're very inspiring, but do you do anything like read anything, listen to anything that just to keep that sort of positive stuff going in?
I'm an avid reader at the moment. There's a couple of books that I read. This just happens to be sitting on my book on my table here. I didn't even intending to refer to it, but it's called 10 global trends that every smart person should know. There's so much negativity floating around out there about the world going to hell in a handcart, and things are a lot better than people think. Most of the books that I read are self-help books, fitness books, and biographies. I love to be inspired. And what I do a lot of the time is I say to myself, one, how do they do that? And two, if they can do that, I can certainly run a business. I remember I was giving a talk, and like you said, I think of myself as inspiring. So I'm in Chicago, I'm spouting off all these stories, and this guy comes up to me, this big guy, and he goes, man, you were so inspiring. He goes, you remind me of my gunnery sergeant or my master sergeant. We'd be in a firefight in Vietnam, and we'd all be in the water, in the mud, in our face and everything. And he'd turn around and yell, cheer up, guys. It could all be worse. It could be worse. We could all be cold, which means dead. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at him and thinking, you've been in firefights in Vietnam and billets and I'm inspiring you. But I love to read about people that have done things that quite frankly, I'm not sure I could have done. And then you realize how great the human spirit is. And things like the Shackelford expedition, you remember that, where he got frozen into the South Pole, and he was frozen in for like 6 months. They didn't lose one man of the crew, and 3 of them had to kite out and an open boat. It was unbelievable. The South Pole, and you just imagine what it would have been like. So I do a lot of reading. Lynn and I love to dance, and we love music. So we go, like we were last night. We were at a performance, and the second one the week before we went to Duke Ellington tribute. So that's one of the reasons we're down here in Miami Beach. I love sports. I played college sports. Both my kids played college basketball, so I'm into sports. And recently, Lynn's gotten back into tennis, and I'm starting to get back into tennis too. So, we try to keep very well-rounded, and what we try to do is leave business behind when we're doing these things. Leave business behind. You cannot. It'll fray at your telomeres. One of our partners, John W. Brick, well, he's on the scientific advisory board, wrote the book, The Telomere Effect. Have you ever heard of telomeres?
Yeah, I have. I'm interested in this.
Okay, so telomeres, the telomere effect, everybody on this call should read it. Telomeres, think of your shoelaces and those little plastic ends of the shoelaces. Think of those as telomeres on the end of your cells. You know how those plastic things fray, your shoelaces just come all fuzzy and everything. If your telomeres, and she says telomeres, I say telomeres. Maybe she knows more than me, but anyway, if those telomeres at the end of the cells fray, your DNA literally gets out of your telomere, and the telomeres, the cell's defunct. The longer your telomeres, and the longer you can, the more intact they are, the more you retard the aging process. So that's an example of one of the books. But the thing is that fretting and worrying erode the telomeres. It's not like a sprained ankle or breaking your bone. It's not what you would call acute, or what do you call it? There's traumatic. It's not traumatic. It's over time. So if you're always living business and thinking business and always following you around, your telomeres are frazzling, and you're aging yourself. So,
wow. So I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
That's a good reason to stop to try and stop worrying and fretting about things. So final question, Victor. I've covered a lot of ground here, but I'd like to ask this final question. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you've believed is impossible and gone on to make possible. What would be an example that we've not covered here where you've escaped your own personal limits?
Well, first I married up, and that's the secret of life. I married well above my pay grade, and I would strongly suggest, I'm a little prejudiced, but I strongly suggest find a life partner that will make you better. And the best relationships are where both people think they're the lucky one. The second thing is, what motivates me? When I was dating Lynn, her mother did not think that I was going to amount to anything, because I was going to be a PE teacher and a basketball coach. And she told Lynn, you marry that boy, you'll spend all your life in a smelly gym. Little did she realize we would own them all. So the moral of the story, behind every successful man stands a surprise mother-in-law. But
I love it.
The thing I can tell you really is not in my life specifically, but it's in general. When I failed, it was because I thought too small. I did it with Brick Bodies. I started with it with Planet. We were going to build 10 planets, sell. Me and my partners had a bunch of partners. We were all ham and eggers, grew up in Baltimore together, and we were paper boys and this and that. I grew up in DC, but when I went to college up there, I met all these guys, and we were going to put our money in, build 10 clubs, sell, and all get to the beach. Well, I'm at the beach. Miami Beach is right out there, but I got a lot more than 10 clubs. And I realize now, we just did a long range planning meeting, and the number, I can't remember, it's 200 or 300. It's one of the two, but it's a long way from 10. And then the other thing is John W. Brick. I limited my thinking and who I could get on the board. And we've just recently got a global thinker on the board. And our budget went from 1 million a year or 5 million a year to 10 million a year, because she said, she's the fundraiser. She said, I'm not going to get on any organization that doesn't think big and make a difference. So it's all about the size of the dream. You want to beyond your limits. It's all about the size of the dream. And keep in mind, kind of like what you said, Matthew, it's not all about size. It's about influence. It's about effectiveness. It's about quality. So whatever it is, you can have one restaurant, for instance, that, but whatever it is, you make sure you're best in class and that you give everything you got to everything you do.
Love it. That's awesome. Well, look, I appreciate your time, Victor. I'd love to sort of see you face to face when we're traveling around. Maybe if you're coming out this way at some point. But
you're welcome. You're welcome in Miami Beach. That's for sure. Yeah,
I might take you up on that.
It's a great. Boy, I was glad I was here when all these other places were closed because of the weather. You go outside. And I just want to close with one final thing: is that if you want to get in touch with me about the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation, you can go to our website at johnwbrickfoundation.org. johnwbrickfoundation.org. And anybody,
we'll include that in the. I'll get the details, and we'll include that in the emails and the show notes and everything, so people can see that as well.
All righty.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Peter. Good luck.
Okay, real pleasure.
I'll speak to you soon.
Yep, you got it.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.